Good evening. If I can have your attention, please. One, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out here today. And while I know that Memorial Day is kind of a day where we honor those that sacrificed their lives or either died on the field of honor or the battlefield, or those that died from wounds, I did want to start off today a little bit with one to recognize all the veterans that were here, and then my two special guests that I did bring with me here as well. So I'm going to introduce the two guests I brought with me, and then I'm going to ask for all veterans to either stand up or raise your hand. So again, I think every day we should be honoring those vets, those that have served in the military and served our country. So if I could have Don Phillips. So in front of you here, I mean, we have other veterans here as well, but I thought it was special to bring these two vets along with me. We have further to my left here is Phil Gensel. He's a Korean War vet. And then I want you to, he's 92 years old. I don't know if he's going to get mad at me for telling you how old he is. Okay, and then to his right, we have Mr. Don Miller. And Don Miller is the only person I've met recently that he enlisted during World War II in the Navy. Then he went to Annapolis, and then he became an officer in the Marine Corps. He then served during the Korean War. He also served in Vietnam, and then he retired as a lieutenant colonel. So again, I've just not met anybody like him. I hope when I'm 98, that I get around and is as sharp and smart as he is. That's my goal. I probably won't make it. The other thing is I have to tell a story. So I brought both of them in my car up here today. So I'm sitting there, I'm doing the math. I got a 98-year-old and a 92-year-old. I have 190 years worth of experience in my car, not even counting my age. Okay, then I started getting nervous. Boy, if I wreck, I'm going to really be in trouble here. So if we could have, if you're able, stand up for all the veterans or raise your hand. I'd like to give a round of applause to all the veterans that are here. Again, we should recognize our veterans every day of the year. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So at this point, we'd like to present the colors.
Color guard, head hook, shoulder, arms. Forward, march. Hold. Left face. Present colors.
At this point, if we could have Miss Amy Kowach come up and provide the national anthem for us.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
we could welcome Chaplain Kozar today. Come up and give her the benediction. Boy, I'm losing it here, huh? Benediction. I'm sorry, we're at the beginning. We're at the beginning here. Okay, invocation.
It's more impressive than it sounds. Let us pray. Loving God, we are gathered today to remember the men and women who have served in our nation's armed forces and have made the ultimate sacrifice in giving of their lives during our nation's wars and armed conflicts. In a special way, we remember the heroic actions of Private First Class Foster Joseph Sayer and his willingness to lay down his life for his comrades. The freedom and liberty that we enjoy today were purchased with their sacrifice. As a grateful people, help us to honor them today and to always remember what they have done for us. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
I believe at this time we're going to have the commissioners from Center County come up and provide a welcome.
Color guard. Shoulder arms. Right face. Forward mark.
Sorry.
So Sherry always keeps me on track here. So before we start here, if we could just stand as you're able, let's give lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, I'm Mark Higgins, Chair of the Center County Board of Commissioners, and I'd like to welcome you to the wonderful Center and Clinton County Veterans Affairs Memorial Day service at this memorial dedicated to Foster Joseph Sayers. It's right and honorable for us to do so. There were only 464 Medal of Honor recipients during World War II, a massive conflict that spanned the globe with 16 million Americans serving in the armed forces. The actions of 20-year-old Foster Joseph Sayers nearly 80 years ago near Thinville, France on November 12, 1944 were extremely courageous. Had he lived long enough, he would have celebrated his 100th birthday just a month ago. Almost, actually a pinch older than the gentleman you had here. I enjoy reading military history, and in virtually every battle, large and small, a sizable fraction of the losing side manages to escape to fight again another day. In his citation, the Army mentions his courageous actions, which led to all of the enemy soldiers on the Hill either being killed or captured. Very rare occurrence during battle. We are honored to be here to celebrate Memorial Day. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you to the Sayers family for your sacrifice. Now, Commissioner Concepcion will add some comments, followed by Commissioner Dush.
Hi, I'm Center County Commissioner Amber Concepcion. It's an honor to welcome you to this service as we recognize the sacrifice of American servicemen and women who've laid down their lives to uphold our freedom and security here in the United States, and also for the cause of democracy and human rights across the globe. Their sacrifices to advance democracy and human rights, particularly in the war in which Foster Joseph Sayers gave his life, paved the way for the security and prosperity that Americans and our allies experience today. It is vital that we remember their sacrifices, both in memorial for the individual soldiers who have given their lives, and also to remember that our security and freedoms were never inevitable or guaranteed. Rather, they result from the courage of those who have stood up for human dignity to combat the armies of aggressors and tyrants, even when there was great uncertainty about the outcome. I'm grateful for the opportunity we have today to memorialize our fallen servicemen and women, and to be able to honor them with our sincere gratitude for the sacrifices that they have made on our behalf. And I'm going to introduce Commissioner Gershon.
Thank you, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all today and spend a little bit of time in reflection of really the sacrifice that so many before us have made. And I just want to say thank you to all the veterans that are here today in attendance, but particularly to Mr. Gensel and Mr. Miller, who have really have set the mark and the stage for some amazing events to come. Because if we can get 191 or 92 years next year, that would be fantastic. So thank you, Brian, for bringing them forward. Just want to quote something from Arthur Ashe. True heroism is remarkably sober, very undramatic. It is not the urge to serve others at whatever cost, but the urge to serve others at whatever cost. So, as we think about the sacrifices that not only the Sayers family and all the other members of our community that have lost folks in family and in military combat, just remember that this is an amazing opportunity for us to give thanks to that we live in the most amazing country in the entire universe. And no matter what anybody says or what anybody does, if we stand together and remember the foundation of our government that over 250 years ago started, let's just keep it going. This is an amazing opportunity for us to be together and to work together and to build together. So thank you for the opportunity to be with you. And again, thank you, Brian, for the opportunity to be here.
Next, I believe we're going to have Mr. James Russo, Chair for Clinton County Commissioners.
Hello everybody, welcome. I'm the new guy. I'm the first guy on the block, first time ever, but I have to say it's an honor to be here with the Sayers family. My father has passed away 40 years ago, but Dad was in the 80th Division, which traveled with the 3rd Army, which traveled with Mr. Foster, the 90th Infantry Regiment. So, and those kids, which they were, gave everything the day that they were called to duty. They left that day. And they gave up their teenhood, what you want to call it. They gave up their midlife. They gave up their retirement years because they had died in battle. So everybody here should thank them. All the veterans, Vietnam, Iraq, Korea, Freedom, Storm. We have to stand up and say thank you, because if it wasn't for these young kids in World War II, probably all of us here would be speaking German. So God bless them, and thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to say a few words. For those of you I've not met, I'm Pennsylvania State Representative Paul Takak, and I represent the 82nd District here in Center County. I'd like to start by recognizing and thanking all those in attendance, the distinguished guests, my fellow legislators, county commissioners, representatives from both the Clinton and Center County Veterans Affairs Departments, the Lions Club, American Legion, VFW, and all of you gathered here together, in particular, the family of Medal of Honor recipient, Private First Class Foster Joseph Sayers. Today, we stand together to mark Memorial Day, a solemn occasion that transcends our differences and unites us in remembrance and in gratitude. We're once again reminded of the unaccountable sacrifices made by Foster Sayers and by the countless men and women who've given their lives in service to our nation. Their bravery and dedication are the bedrock upon which our freedoms are built, and it is their legacy we honor today. In a world increasingly marked by division, political, ideological, and social, we're reminded of our shared history and of the values that bind us as Americans. Memorial Day is not just a time to remember the fallen. It is a call to reflect on the principles for which they fought and died: democracy, liberty, and justice for all. These are the ideals that have shaped our nation and continue to guide us, even in times of turmoil. Our history is rich with the stories of American soldiers who stood against tyranny and oppression, both at home and abroad, to protect the freedoms we hold dear. They stood as a bulwark against authoritarianism and inhumanity, ensuring that the light of democracy and freedom continued to shine brightly. Yet today we face another kind of challenge. Forces both within and outside our borders seek to divide us, to pit us against one another in a battle of ideologies and identities. Media, political rhetoric, and social conflicts can sometimes overshadow all that unites us. It is precisely in this climate that the spirit of Memorial Day becomes even more critical. We must come together, not just in memory of those who have fallen, but in recognition of the values they died defending. Their sacrifice calls us to rise above our differences, to engage in meaningful and respectful dialogue, and to reaffirm our commitment to the principles that make us strong. Honest and passionate disagreement and debate should be expected and even encouraged. Indeed, they are essential to a healthy democracy. But when they cross the line from being respectful and productive to being divisive and destructive, I believe it's an affront to those we honor today. As we pay tribute to these heroes, let us also honor them by fostering a nation that lives up to their sacrifice. Let us recognize that as Americans, we have each been entrusted with the duty, the responsibility, and the privilege to safeguard and defend the principles and ideals that these brave men and women died defending. And that by doing so, we will help ensure that their legacy continues to inspire future generations. In closing, Memorial Day is more than a day of remembrance. It is a call to action. It is a solemn reminder that there is more that unites us than divides us. Especially this year, I pray that when passions run high, when it seems that all we can see is our differences, that we instead pause and reflect on the service and the sacrifice of those we honor today. And that we truly honor their legacy by upholding the principles and ideals they fought to protect, and by striving every day to be united in purpose and in spirit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome, distinguished guests, family, and friends. I am truly honored to be here today to celebrate Foster Sayers for the start of Memorial Day weekend. As a young boy, I grew up just across the way in Howard. That being said, the name Foster Sayers was a key part of my vocabulary, as it was for many young kids around town. It was a name that we associated with our playground, where we'd swim and fish, not necessarily the name of a hero. We all knew there was something special about Foster Sayers, what he had done to win the Medal of Honor, and have his name associated with such a beautiful place. But we really didn't understand the gravity of it. I clearly did not understand the significance of Memorial Day either. Even though I had the opportunity to see many memorials as a young man with names chiseled in stone, I just didn't necessarily grasp the importance at the time. When I graduated high school, I decided to join the Army and serve this great country. As I served through the 90s, the names of monuments and memorials began to have more meaning to me. I became an active participant in many memorial events and gained a better understanding of what it meant to have your name placed on a memorial and what it took to get it there. I understood their sacrifice and gained a better idea of the meaning of Memorial Day. But I still was unable to associate faces or experiences to the names of service members chiseled into those military memorials. The events of 9/11 then changed the projection of my life and that of many of the members of my military family. We understood that we were now actively involved in the war on terrorism and potentially would have to make the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Many of us did not really think it would be us, though. We trained hard and had an air of invincibility about us. It was not long before many of us were called to service in combat around the world. It did not take long to realize that we may not all make it home. Throughout the years that followed, several of my close friends, soldiers, made the ultimate sacrifice in service of the country. The air of invincibility faded. The loss of friends and family in a faraway conflict became a reality across this nation. I began to gain a real understanding of the names chiseled in stone. Some of the names were no longer just names. They were friends. I had faces to associate with the names. Stories of joy and excitement, along with stories of great sadness to accompany me as I would navigate the rest of my life. I then truly understood the meaning of Memorial Day. You hear people say never forget often when they talk about those that have made the ultimate sacrifice. Those of you that have lost family and friends, you know that it's impossible to forget. Loss is with us every day, and it's our duty to ensure the memories of their sacrifice survive the test of time. Memorial Day weekend is dedicated to the celebration of their lives, but we remember and honor them all year round. What is important is that we continue to tell the stories of our lost heroes, friends, family that did make the ultimate sacrifice. Help put faces and stories to the names on the wall. Celebrate their lives and share the heroic actions and dedication they had to the battle buddies that stood by their side. Celebrate their sacrifice for the freedoms we experience every day. And celebrate them especially on this special holiday dedicated to them. I know there are young kids growing up across the way in Howard that are familiar with the name Foster Sayers, as I was as a young kid. I imagine that many of them use the name as a reference for where they go swim and fish, their current playground. I hope that many of them choose to serve this great country someday, but I hope they never have to experience putting familiar faces to names chiseled in stone on memorials and monuments around this great country that honor our fallen. I do, however, hope that someday they get to hear the stories of the heroes that have made the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms that they enjoy. Stories that put substance to names. Stories like the one Foster Sayers III is about to provide to this audience. The story of a true American hero that demonstrated incomprehensible heroism and made the ultimate sacrifice in service of the country and his fellow soldiers. A story that must live forever. I want to thank you all again for attending today. It is important that we continue to remember those that have made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of the United States of America. I would now like to invite Foster Sayers III to the podium for a perspective that we're all so fortunate to experience today that truly epitomizes what this weekend is all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming here today to honor my grandfather, and thanks for the organizers for including me, and to all the veterans and servicemen, thank you for your service. I wanted to tell my grandfather's story, but not just the heroic acts part, because his story, I think, is tremendously inspiring. And I want to talk about his origins because they are ones that would suggest perhaps his life was worth nothing, but one day, in one battle, his life meant everything. Foster Joseph Sayers was only alive for 20 years, yet he managed to create a tremendous legacy, one that surrounds us right now. And he was born 100 years not far from here in Marsh Creek. and he was born to a woman named Alice Sayers. His father did not claim him. Alice had been born legally blind and deaf in the year 1900. And that was an era where you just simply were not educated if you were that type of person. And because of her disabilities, social services took my grandfather from her when he was 6 years old and placed him in foster care. And through firsthand accounts, we know that he was used as child labor on farms and in coal mines. He was known for his toughness, as someone you didn't mess with. It was said that when someone was bullying him or someone he cared about, that he'd begin to shake, and it was a sign that that offender was about to go down. That indomitable fighting spirit would lead him to enlist in the United States Army. On March 3rd, 1943, he enlisted, and then at 19, married the love of his life, Ellen Gardner. When he shipped out to Liverpool, England, on March 23rd, 1944, his wife was a few months pregnant with my father, Foster Joseph Sayers Jr. I know my grandfather was looking forward to the birth of his child and to being a father, because from Europe, he sent a baby doll home to my grandmother, certain that my father was going to be a girl. You see, my father was born on August 7th, 1944, and my grandfather was killed on November 12th, 1944. My grandmother had mailed photos, but they were returned unopened. My father still has that baby doll, the physical confirmation of the love of a father he would never have the chance to meet. And a symbol to remind us that the ultimate sacrifice of a hero is not merely one's life, but being part of the lives of those that they loved. Leading up to that fateful day in Thionville, France, my grandfather, a member of the 357th Infantry, 90th Infantry Division, had already been through intense fighting, beginning with the Normandy campaign on D-Day. The 90th Infantry, with their TO patch, originally for Texas, Oklahoma, came to mean the tough hombres. In October of 1944, a month before Foster Sayers' final sacrifice in the Battle of Thionville, Major Van Fleet said, "The men who wear that patch fought for 53 consecutive days. They landed among the first, took the staggering blows of the prepared German might, and came back with even more decisive blows of their own to sweep across France and onto Hitler's front porch." In the Battle of Thionville, that victory was possible because of the heroic acts of my grandfather, Foster Sayers, in giving his life. And that battle was a crucial one. Crucial to win because the 357th Infantry needed to go on and join Patton's army to fill the gap in the Battle of the Bulge, a decisive battle in the European theater. The stakes could not have been higher. I can only wonder, how many more might have died? How much longer would the war in Europe have lasted if not for my grandfather choosing to make the ultimate sacrifice that day? When I was 19, I got to appreciate the importance of what my grandfather did to an even greater degree when I spent the summer in France. I'd gotten a part-time job with the Princeton Review teaching SATs as a tutor, and I took that opportunity to visit Thionville, or Thionville, comme on dit en français, and that was the place where my grandfather laid down his life to ensure victory over Nazi Germany. I found it to be a quaint French town, and I felt fortunate to be there in such different circumstances from my namesake. After touring the town for a bit, I went to their library, and fortunately I was fluent enough in French to explain my heritage and my reason for my visit. The librarians assembled a few patrons in the library present to gather around to hear my story, and in my best French, I shared about my grandfather. As I spoke, tears flowed freely from those in attendance, and when I concluded, I was embraced by a group of people who were strangers just minutes before. Each of them thanked me personally, not just for my grandfather and his sacrifice. They said, "Thank you for my liberty." I'd never had any doubts about the worthiness of my grandfather's cause before that, but it was so meaningful to feel that gratitude firsthand. There truly is nothing more noble than sacrificing your life so others are free to live theirs. Reflecting on the circumstances behind World War II, where the war in Europe was caused by Hitler and Nazi Germany, adds to the nobility of my grandfather's sacrifice. And it underscores the importance this ceremony has today and the memorial has, because the freedom we celebrate and remember those who fought for it increasingly is threatened in present times. And some of us need to course correct on what we choose to sacrifice, because to me, we're not making the right ones. We sacrifice the truth to feel superior. We sacrifice our values to acquire power. We sacrifice our character to gain acceptance. We sacrifice connection with our community to argue with strangers we don't even know. We need to stop making these sacrifices. Hitler became a threat to freedom in Europe and the world because he was enabled by Germans who made the wrong sacrifices: truth, value, character, and community. To stop him took the extraordinary courage of men like Foster Joseph Sayers, who we honor today. Men who believed that America, democracy, and freedom were bigger and more important than themselves and were worth dying for. Thus, why Memorial Day is more important than ever in an era where selflessness is at some times celebrated. We need to be intentional in honoring acts of selflessness. We must never forget that we have freedom because of the selflessness of others, that the red stripes in our flag, the emblem of our nation, represent the blood that they shed so that you and I can live as free people. We owe it to them to confront uncomfortable realities about things happening in the world, in our country. And we can honor the fallen by having the courage to speak the truth, to do what is right, to dissent when support, or to do what we know is wrong, and to care for those in our community. In this way, we can each do our part to preserve the freedom they fought and died for. So, as you observe this Memorial Day, honor the fallen by committing to make the right sacrifices, like pride, ego, and self. Be present, be humble, and be thankful for the courage of great Americans like Foster J. Sayers, who are willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for the freedom that we enjoy today. Thank you, and God bless.
At this point, we're going to have Foster Jr. go ahead and lay the wreath.
Thank you both.
All right, stand head, shoulder, arm. Forward, march. Go. Left face. Present colors.
At this point, we're going to have Chaplain Kozin provide the benediction.
Bow your heads and pray for God's blessing. Merciful God, we are grateful for the opportunity of honoring our deceased war dead and remembering their sacrifice. They died so that we might live, and we're reminded that there is no greater love than for one to lay down one's life for one's friend. Help us as a nation to continue to work for true justice and peace in our land and throughout the world. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you, look upon you kindly, and give you his peace. Amen.
Special thanks goes to Frank Carbala, the photographer. The Howard Lions Club that brings everything out here. They're the guys in the purple shirts that are running around setting everything up for us. Appreciate what you do. Marie Lingle donated the wreath today. We did have McKee Excavation and Septic Services provided the place for us to use rest services. Special thanks to Sherry, who keeps me on track and set all this up. Sherry Nahert from our office, and to Roger Elling as well from our office. I always, when we kind of close these things, we try to, since it is a somber time, I always want to close it, and I really like, there's one poem, if you haven't heard it or read it, it's, I believe it's down on the National Cemetery. It's one, it's posted down there for you all to read, but I wanted to just talk about, or just recite the first verse of it. This is from The Bivouac of the Dead. It was written by Theodore O'Hara, a native of Danville, Kentucky, to honor his fellow soldiers from Kentucky who died during the Mexican-American War. And the first verse goes, "The muffled drum sad roll has beat the soldier's last tattoo. No more on life's parade shall meet that brave and fallen few. On fame's eternal camping ground, their silent tents are spread, and glory guards with solemn round the bivouac of the dead." Thank you for coming out here today. Following posting of the colors, the event, we're going to have up here the unveiling of the bricks. So we ask for all of you to come up to those that bought bricks and kind of see as they unveil them. Again, thank everyone for coming out. If I missed anyone for helping out, I apologize at this point. Again, I think this is a great way to start off our Memorial Day weekend here with a beautiful day. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see any bald eagles, but we'll keep looking. Thank you again for coming out.
Head, head, shoulder, arms, right face, forward march.